Good afternoon, colleagues. I hope you had fun coding a little, playing around a little. I'm just going to give you a minute or two to just get back to the presentation. I know it can be, you can get stuck there and really want to continue playing around there some more. So please make your way back to the presentation. I'm just going to introduce us quickly. My name is Jaco van Niekerk. I am the DCES for capacity building, which in the e-learning space. So specifically, I'm here to help you develop digital skills to improve your teaching methodologies. And one of the things we wanted to have a look at is coding clubs. So my colleague who I roped in to help out here, his name is Louis van der Merwe. You can say hi now, Louis.
Hi.
Thank you. So I wrote Louis in for a couple of reasons. One of the critical things is he's fascinated by this concept of coding clubs. His background, I think, really lends itself well to it. He is he was an IT teacher before he became an e-learning advisor. He is now the e-learning advisor in the Overberg. And I think as an IT teacher, he's uniquely placed in that he's done actual real programming as a kind of a side job as well while he was teaching. And as an IT teacher, I think he's uniquely qualified in understanding the building blocks that learners require to learn how these things work. But we're not necessarily talking about trying to transform every single student out there into a fully fledged programmer, even though we know that could have enormous potentially positive economic impact. But we really want to kind of explain and expand this concept of a coding club. So, Lou, I don't know if you want to add anything to that before we dive into our presentation.
Thank you, Jaco. No, you did a really good job. The thing is, I've sat there with hundreds, probably 1,000 learners in front of me, starting to teach them coding in grade 10. So I know a bit about what it takes to teach the learners the concepts of programming. And I'm excited for the concept of coding clubs because it's beneficial for everyone. So excited.
Right. Wonderful stuff. So I'm going to jump to our presentation now. And I think one of the most important things that I want to highlight here is the fact that we are talking specifically about the idea of the coding club. We're not here today to really expand and elaborate on the curriculum, on the coding and robotics that's going to come later as part of the curriculum, but we specifically want to look at this concept of what a coding club is and how you could potentially get one started. And I think one of the critical things that we found in the last while is that there's a lot of kind of, I think, fear interpretation of the whole concept of a coding club. And what we want to do today is we really want to kind of try to give you a few basic pointers as to where you can get started. Remember, there's a critical thing that we also keep in mind here, and that is we have 1 hour to kind of get you through a few critical things that we want to look at. And one of the main reasons why when Louis and I started talking about this concept, because Louis's been asking me for a while, can we do something like this? One of the critical things I think is there's a lot of things out there. And we can easily get paralyzed by just the sheer quantity of things that we have out there. So that's why we're going to go. We want to slice it down to 1 hour. What are the things you can do? What are the first steps you can take? How can you get this? How can you get the ball rolling? But before we can even get to that, don't worry, we are recording this session. You will get it. You will get it later. The register, we will post that again. I know the link that you see now on the screen is not clickable anymore, but we will share that register with you again towards the end of the session. So please stick around and let's get going with everything that there is to learn about how we can get started with a coding club. But before we can even get to that, we need to understand, like, why is there this hype around coding? What is the whole idea around coding and robotics, and why is it such a big a big deal. Now, again, the hype is around coding and robotics. We are focusing today only on the coding part. We're not really going to touch the robotics part. We want to focus on the coding part. So we tried to break it down to 4 things. And I see Louis conveniently turned his camera off. He is going to be co-presenting this with me. So let's go through these 4 critical things. Thanks, Louis. He's trying to hide his face there. First thing, instant feedback. Now, why is instant feedback important? It's a little quick ad break. We are starting with a series on digitizing formative assessment next week. So we'll start with that one. The first session is going to be on Wednesday, and we're really going to delve into this concept in detail, the instant feedback concept. But instant feedback is such an important thing. So Louis, how does coding give us instant feedback, and what makes us different?
My experience is that when a child starts coding and he learns how to code, he tries something and it doesn't work. And then you guide him a little bit, or you give him a hint, and he works at it, and then suddenly it works. And that moment of enjoyment, that pure utter bliss of this thing that I've built with my mind is now working. It's instant feedback. It's also instant the other way. You can immediately see when it's not working. You can immediately see when it's working. So it's a very easy self-motivational loop that just keeps on going. I love the instant feedback that comes with coding robotics.
And when we look at education at the moment, what we actually end up seeing is pretty much the opposite. Kids write a test, and how long do they wait till they know that it was successful? So there's no instant feedback. They don't know that they got it right. They don't know they got it wrong. I would love to believe that no learner willfully writes down things that they know are wrong. They actually all think that the stuff they're writing down is correct. Even though sometimes as a teacher, we don't understand how they could have possibly thought that. But they do. They think it's correct. And this instant feedback is so important to learning. I like to use, and Louis heard these anecdotes to death, I like to use climbing a tree as a perfect example for me. When you climb a tree and the branch breaks, you know immediately, instantly, that didn't work. There's an instantaneous thing about it. So guess what? You can instantly learn how to improve your tree climbing ability. The same way that when you climb a tree and you reach the top, you can immediately see this wonderful view that you get from the top of the tree. Whereas if you didn't get that instantly, you would climb to the top of the tree, and a week later you get to see what it looks like, and by then you're bored and you're not that interested anymore. So this is so important. Second one.
Just on the concept of instant feedback, if you were going to use something like GimKit or Google Quizzes in your classroom, you could have instant feedback. I'm just saying.
Yes. Thank you, Louis. And that's kind of what we're talking about next week when we get to the digitizing formative assessment. Your assessment for learning is the ability to answer questions and immediately know whether you're right or wrong, and then immediately know what to do next, which is where our next point is debugging. So, Louis, what is debugging? Tell us a little bit about it.
Debugging is when you write code and it doesn't work. Completely doesn't work, and then you have to fix it. So you have to think to yourself, where did I go wrong? Why doesn't it work? You have to logically work through your steps, analyze it, and all these skills of analyzing, problem solving, analytical thinking is very important, not only for coding, but also for any other science subjects. And I would actually say for any aspect of life, really. It's this wonderful thing in coding that there is no writing code without making mistakes. Doesn't happen. So coding is that lifelong process for me of writing something, building it, seeing it doesn't work, and then figuring out how to fix it. That's debugging.
And not being scared of it.
Not being scared of it is a huge part of it, Jaco. You don't even know how right you are. I had this weird phenomenon, which I then Googled and found a couple of studies on, where we found that it was harder to teach girls coding in the beginning than boys, because the study said that we teach our girls to be perfect little girls, to follow the rules and to be good and not to make mistakes. And when they come to my classes and I teach them, no, it's about making mistakes. They're kind of, they're stuck in this inertia of not knowing what to do. And I have to teach them the freedom of, it's okay to make mistakes. You're going to make mistakes. That's being a coder, and you're going to learn from your mistakes, and that's how you're going to grow. And it's wonderful to see that whole mindset just develop over 3 years of, you know what, it's fine to make mistakes and learn from them, especially in my girls. I remember that a lot.
Yep, that is such an important thing. I think just imagine for a second if we could apply this debugging concept to something like maths. Now you're supposed to solve a complicated equation and you go wrong at step number 1, but you wait a week before you know you got it wrong. Imagine you were able to know immediately step number 1 is wrong, go back, redo it, figure out what you did wrong, go to step number 2. Step number 2 is right, step number 3 is wrong, figure it out, sort it out. That's the concept of debugging. The ability to, as you are going through it, see there's a mistake and correct it. I was a language teacher, strangely enough, now in this coding environment as well. But debugging, the perfect example of debugging in language is your spell checker, because the spell checker is literally debugging your writing as you are doing it. It shows you made a mistake. And debugging has become even more advanced. Now we've got things like Grammarly, we've got all sorts of fun, useful tools that shows us as we are writing, we have made a mistake. So that concept of debugging your writing is just as useful when it actually comes to languages and your other things, to know that you're making a mistake while you're making it, and then while you've made it, you fix the mistake, because that's how we learn. This is actually how we go about things. Now, this is one of the more complicated things. I like Louis got a good way of explaining abstract thinking.
Abstract thinking for me is your internal mind's village, that life inside your head. A simple explanation would be if I tell you the directions to my house and I start with saying, well, you leave the school, you go to the street and you turn left and you go until you meet the stop street and then you turn right. If you're immediately visualizing that in your head, then you are using abstract thinking. And that's a very valuable skill. It's something that needs to be developed. I have unfortunately also seen learners that rocked up to my classes in grade 10 and they really struggled with coding. And then it came to my attention they'd never really developed abstract thinking as a skill. So then it was my challenge to teach them this completely new skill of visualization, of abstract thinking, of an inner world that you need to be able to code, or to code well, at least.
And I think this is the part where it becomes exciting, the coding and robotics, because if you're starting to connect the dots, if you're actually starting to do the abstract thinking at this point in time and imagining how these things work, then you'll start realizing that these things are incredibly important in everything that we do. But our education system is not necessarily geared towards developing these skills. We're not geared towards developing the debugging concept. We're not geared towards developing abstract thinking. And then the last one, which I think is absolutely important, is problem solving. I love what Carlo just said there in the chat. The learners are so afraid, or they always want to be correct, and they're afraid of getting things wrong. Just to touch on that before we get to the problem solving thing, I've got 3 boys at home. One is 5 years old, one is 4 years old. They have no issue getting stuff wrong. Especially the 4-year-old. He just dives headfirst into life and he makes so many mistakes along the way, but he's also learning at an unbelievable rate because of that. Because he makes a mistake and then he debugs his mistake. He starts thinking, he's got a prize abstract thinking, and then we get to the last thing, he tries to solve problems. So problem solving, Louis?
Well, one of my most useful skills as an IT teacher was pretending I'm an idiot. I would write the problem on the board and then I would pretend to not know how to solve it, and I would start solving it, and I'd write down my thinking step by step, and I would get it wrong. And whenever I got something wrong, the kids, of course, got super excited. They could see some of them I had now done something wrong, and then they'd help me. And as I was showing this, and I would do it over and over, eventually I would take them to problems that I really do struggle with, but by then we had established this culture of looking at the problem and trying things and getting it wrong and getting it right. And that led to us being better at problem solving, applicable to all subjects and areas of life, but a very nice thing to be able to do with your learners.
I like that idea. I think it's important what Carlos is pointing out there. This always wanting to be correct. There's a human aspect about this whole coding club that I think is essential, and that is the showing that there's nothing wrong with getting things wrong. but that we can learn from it. I mean, teachers can get things wrong as well, but we need to show that that's okay, and we will continue to develop that thing. How do you break the culture that you may get things wrong and then get them to look for answers themselves? I think it's about empowering our learners, Carlo. As simple as that. I think it's about placing more power in their hands to take ownership of their own learning and to trust them to be autonomous learners. It's not an easy thing, because what you have to realize is you're trying to break a habit and change something that is really, really entrenched in our learners. By the time, I know when I was as a high school teacher, my kids always sat there in grade 8. They were so fearful of using the wrong color pen to write because they're so afraid of getting things wrong. And I'm like, okay. And then you tell them cover your books in green, and then they start asking questions. But can it be dark green? Can it be light green? Can it be this green? Can it be that green? And we actually what we're doing is we're creating this kind of fear of these things. So I love that, LZ. Model the behavior you would like to see. Be vulnerable. What a
When I
wonderful
worked with my learners, you know, by the time we were matric, they legitimately knew what I struggled with and what I was good at. And we all knew which kids in the class were way smarter than me. And I was fine. You need to not be afraid to say, or to at least admit yourself that these kids are smarter than you, some of them, and then celebrate that. You know, if I say if you did your job well, then these kids will be more successful than you ever were. And that's your responsibility as a teacher. So it was wonderful for me to give them problems. And now all of these problems have multiple solutions, and then they come with better solutions than mine. And then I praise them. I tell them, your solution was better than mine. And that's wonderful. Let's celebrate that. That's a nice skill to also have with your learners. They really appreciate it by the time they're matric, that they understand that I have that relationship with you.
Right. And of course, when it comes to the coding club, these things are critical to realize, because, I mean, you're going to enter into a world that you probably also don't know a lot about. So you have to be vulnerable. You have to accept and understand that these kids might very quickly move beyond where you are, and there's nothing wrong with that. So when I say about what do you need to start a coding club, most people think what you need to start a coding club is you need to have some guy that has an IT degree. You need to have lots of money. You need to have money. Money is the critical thing. This is what we need if we want to do a coding club, because all these things are super expensive. The reality is, in my mind, no. I think there are only really two things, critical things that you need. There are other things that help, of course. You would be able to, if you had the finances, to build out on your infrastructure. But generally speaking, the WCG schools infrastructure that we've got out there, your mini PC labs, the schools that have received tablets, there are more resources that are eventually going to be delivered to other schools. These things are more than enough for you to actually get going with your coding club. But it's also a very convenient excuse not to start one. So you actually only need the following two things. You need enthusiasm. If you're enthusiastic, if you're excited, you can do it. And then what's the other one? Curiosity. What I find remarkable when I talk to Louis about this whole concept is he has boundless curiosity when it comes to this idea of starting a coding club. I think he has sifted through so many resources. It is incredible to even consider. And again, the thing that makes his understanding of this thing so valuable is he knows what it takes to get kids to eventually start to learn how to program, like really proper programming stuff. We're not talking about that now. We're talking about the building blocks that you could put in place that could get a learner there. But knowing what you require to get to program helps. And that curiosity, Louis, you've discovered some interesting things, I'm sure.
Yes, I have. I've made a list of things. I keep an updated list of useful links, and we're going to share that with you. Now, even at the very end, I put some paragraphs there. Like, if you have a smart kid that wants to know more, then if it asks you what language should you learn or how can you go further, I've put my suggestions at the bottom. We're not going to cover them today, but I'm going to give you my live document with my notes so that you know how to answer some of the difficult questions that might come your way, or which suggestions are good suggestions in terms of further coding in the future. Like, there's no replacement for enthusiasm or curiosity. If you've got those two things, you're done. You don't need anything else. You don't need to be a master coder. You just need to facilitate their enthusiasm and curiosity. And today we're going to show you how to do that.
Because Louis, technically, they don't need anything else more from us now. If they've got the enthusiasm and curiosity, they could technically leave the session now. But don't leave the session before everyone jumps off. We want to show you where to be curious. I think this is a critical thing. If you've got enthusiasm and curiosity, now what are the first and the most difficult steps to actually starting your coding club? And these are actually super simple steps. Not that simple. Right. Daniela, I think we'll tackle that question in a minute when you talk about the unplugged coding activities. Louis got a couple of those up his sleeves as well. But the first and the most, I don't know which one of these two is the most challenging, but really important, is explore. The more you can explore, the more you can scratch around, the more you can find different things that you could do, the better you're off. I think the list that we will share with you, I still need to kind of clean it up a little bit. Some of the links are all working, but I just want to make it look a little bit prettier still. But critically is Louis trying to kind of condense it and narrow this exploration down for you into things that he believes does work. And then probably one of the harder parts is to actually choose something. Choose. And go with it. And what we just said, we had a long conversation about that now. You're not going to make a mistake. You might choose something that you realize is not working. That wasn't a mistake. That was learning about something that doesn't work, which is just as useful as knowing what does work. Yes, Lou?
Yeah, I'm going to just straight up tell you, if you think this is going to be some perfect clinical experiment with your little soldiers sitting in a row, it's not going to be like that. It's probably going to be messy. It might be noisy. It might accidentally be a lot of fun, and that's going to be okay. A really nice coding class ends up being slightly messy. It's not a bunch of cerebral kids typing away. It's kids sharing, laughing, getting things wrong, putting up their hands incessantly saying, can you help me? You going there, seeing if you can help them. Sometimes you can, sometimes you can't. And it's a lot of fun.
And it's a collective thing. That's, I think, critical. Learning about this is one of those beautiful things because it's a community thing that you're doing. The coding club is essential to realize this club mentality is a look, we're all in this thing together mentality. Of you are the teacher, you don't need to know a whole lot more than the learners do. You're part of it. You're part of the group that's learning about this thing on the go. These are the most successful coding clubs that I've personally witnessed, are the ones that are messy, noisy, but fun. A lot of fun, because that's the thing. It brings back the joy of learning, which we sometimes gets lost a little bit in education, I think. Taking away some of the structure and just making it pure, good old-fashioned fun. Louis, do you want to just tackle that question by Daniela when she's asked about the unplugged coding activities that you can recommend 4 to 7 learners?
No problem. Daniela, you're saying grades 4 to 7. So what you're going to do is you might look at something like the Lego 6 bricks system. I know the foundation phase is all over that at the moment. It's actually applicable right up to grade 9, but grade 4 to 7 is a good system for that unplugged. Another option would be your tangible, it's called tangible boats, rangers, and tanks. That's the thing where you get the system of tokens, 150 Rand for a packet of tokens, where you can print them out and laminate them and cut them out for free. And then there's a free app on your phone or your tablet, and you can have the kids guided little lessons as they go through the lessons. I remember Ashrik Don once told me that the last level of tanks he solved by being in the shower one day. That was a nice thing to say, because you know this inspiration coming at a weird. And so no, he's done that. I've done that. We've gone through all the littles. It's a very nice unplugged kind of coding thing. Or if you're looking for advanced things in the class in terms of problem solving and algorithms that you can just do for the kid that's ahead maybe, or your rotation station system. There's also the BBrust unplugged system of cards that have got a problem on the front and a solution on the back that I found it also works very well as an unplugged solution. So those are 3 options you can look at. They are in the document that we're going to share with everyone.
Yep. All right. So let's have a look at the logistics. So once you've got once you've got this kind of exploration and choosing of things sorted out, then what comes next? Now, this is just, okay, I think we've completely oversimplified this, but we're trying to really get that message across that the hard part is choosing something, is finding something. I see John Marie has mentioned a couple of other things, GridMat with ducks, command cards, etc. There are lots of things out there. There are so many things out there. The challenge is taking a first step. And then the rest of the things kind of start happening. So John Marie probably knows about these things because she has taken that first step, which is wonderful. Right, so I think this is a critical step. You shouldn't go rogue. Discuss this with the management at school, with your principal, with your principal, with your SMT, that they're kind of all on board that this is something that you would like to do. Then you also obviously find a venue that meets your requirements. So some of you are talking about offline venues. That's perfectly fine. And you can do that in a classroom. Alternatively, you need to look at the logistics around being able to use your computer labs or whatever the case might be. There might be tablets around, but these are critical things where the management comes into play, finding that venue and finding that place where you're going to do. Then you kind of need to have your schedule, get your learners that are going to be involved. Remember, you might not be able to cover the entire school, so you'll have to find learners that are keen, that really want to get into this thing. Eventually, you can scale this thing. And then last up, you start your club. Now, we want to really kind of simplify this concept for you, because we don't want the logistics to bog a person down, because they can. You can get bogged down and think, oh, this is but ultimately, what I've seen great success stories of schools that say, look, I'm going to start with 5 to 10 learners after school. We're going to get together. We're going to just play around and figure out how this thing is going to go. A few years later, you get on a plane, you go and compete in America in your international robotics competitions. So I think this is incredibly important to kind of get your head around that. That starting is the challenge.
Yeah, and I have to just point out, the reason we went with the examples that we're going to is that we know full well that our schools do actually have internet and they do have devices. Like after these last touchscreen laptops were delivered to our smaller schools, I can tell you straight up, 85 schools in my district have devices and they have internet. So let's make use of these resources and let's start these coding clubs.
Thanks, Louis. And again, you have to understand that. Right, I like what Christelle's pointed out there. You've got Bluetooth capability with the mini PCs. There's lots of options out there, but the reality is you won't know what you can do until you start with something. I think that's the bottom line. And again, I'm always going to bring it back to that whole concept that we said in the beginning. You're not going to get it right, 100% right the first time. It's not going to be a perfect thing. You will debug it as you go along. You will use problem solving as you go along. You'll get feedback from your learners, instant feedback, whether or not they enjoy what they're doing or not. And you need to adapt this as you go along. The one thing that I can say with absolute certainty is, if you don't start, you will never have a club. This is the only thing I can say with absolute certainty.
That's something I've taught DBE as well. I've told them, if we're never going to start with coding robotics as a subject, we're never going to have one, and it's never going to be perfect. It's always going to be a messy start that first year. So let's just do it. They haven't listened yet. But right, we can do coding clubs.
Where are we going to start exploring? Yes, you can start things on cell phones. I don't think there's anything wrong with starting your playing around with cell phones. Kids can do crazy things on cell phones. I don't understand how you can use a screen that big to write a 400-word, 500-word essay, but lots of my learners did that, and they wrote unbelievably good essays. Doesn't make sense to me because I didn't grow up in that way, but our kids are growing up like that. They're understanding how it works. It's amazing, Jonathan. The club is reaching the 1-year anniversary on 1 September. And guess what Jonathan did? He started. Right. And I'm sure he will tell you that it was not perfect when they started. I'm sure there's lots of bumps and bruises along the way. But I think they started. Right, so we're going to talk about where can we start exploring. Now, I'm just going to run a quick poll here. How many of you were able to play around on code.org a little bit just before we started? Right, so just a quick poll. So just a tick if you can say yes, I did play around on code.org before we got going, or just a cross to say no, I didn't actually play around on it. Maybe you joined basically at 3 o'clock and didn't quite have time to get to play around with it. Maybe you did play around with it. Louis, it seems most of our participants missed out on the fun.
That's sad. No, there's always time to show them code.org later.
Well, we'll show them that now. We will definitely show them code.org now. I just think it's a great place to kind of start exploring the possibilities. Right, so so I'm gonna close this poll now. I'm gonna click on code.org and we're gonna show you how it works. One of the crazy things for me about the coding community, the global coding community, is they want to turn everyone on the planet into coders. That's kind of what they want to do. And because of that, they give away unbelievably good resources for absolutely free. Some of these things have paywalls, of course, but so many of these things, they just give away basically a curriculum, they give away the tools, they just give away so many things for free. So you don't need to spend any money. Remember, we said enthusiasm and curiosity. So you came to this session, so you've shown enthusiasm and curiosity. So let's try and feed that curiosity a little bit. Now, in code.org, what we did is we went and we took you straight to one of the things that you can do. So if you open up code.org, you'll find a website that kind of looks like this. What we did is we just went into the students part, clicking over here. We're going to go to students. And then we will go to scroll down. The K to 5 courses, we're just going to keep it basic for now, but it really can get quite complicated, a lot of these things. So it isn't always so straightforward. I'm going to skip the pre-reader express, but I want to just kind of talk about this for a second, because the pre-reader express is a very, very nice place to start when you have when your kids don't have any kind of background at all. All right, so if they're still lost on a computer, they still need to learn basic mouse skills, etc. Very nice place, because it actually starts with basic drag and drop functionality. How do you drag a block? How do you click a block into another thing? But we're going to jump to the Express course, which says ages 8 to 18, or 9 to 18 at least, just to show you how this thing works quickly. While this is loading, Louis, what do you like specifically about code.org? And this is now from your experience as an IT teacher. Why would this have helped if your kids had gone through this before they got to grade 10 IT?
Okay. What I like about code.org is the simplicity, the idea, I think, behind it. You can just have the kids click on one and you facilitate them going through the things. And if you were to scroll down from sequencing, sprites, etc., and especially when you get to the express part of it, the concepts that they are learning there, loops, conditionals, if-else statements, while loop, functions. Now, we only teach functions in grade 11. Then embedded loops later on. That's like the most difficult question in your grade 10 final exams, probably an embedded loop, a loop within a loop. But it's already built into this teaching system for code.org, which is free for a club. If I had a kid that went to grade 10 IT and he had gone through this course, you could have 19s plus for programming, easy. Every single test and exam, there is no doubt in my mind, that would have been your 90 plus student from grade 10 to matric, because the advantage that he has by having this background, this way of thinking, of solving problems, of knowing these basic concepts, you cannot put a price on that. It's invaluable. I've even heard, I spoke to the Stellenbosch University lecturer for programming. He did undergrads and postgraduates. And he told me that IT learners had an advantage over his other students at university that they never lost. Not in undergraduate studies, not in postgraduate studies. They were always ahead of the other learners because these concepts came very naturally to them and they've been practicing them for years. And I imagine that times twice because the learner's already doing that before it gets to grade 10 IT. It's mind-blowing how wonderful that would be.
And just to bring it back from moving away from the just turning everyone into a programmer, the basic ability to do these things, to debug, to problem solve, to figure things out, that spills over into all academics. It really has, it's not about programming per se. It's about a different way of thinking about things, a way of kind of going back to what Carlo pointed out in the beginning, of moving away from that fear of getting things wrong and being more courageous and willing to learn as you go through processes, which is, I think, critical for us to understand. Right, so as you can see, code.org, it's very nice because it's very sequential. There we've got it starts with a little video at the front, and then you've got a whole bunch of problems that you need to solve. Now, what we did is we dumped you in at this one, the first skill building exercise. And I'm not signed in, so I'm going to talk about that. Hopefully, we are kind of running out of time a little bit, so we'll see if we get to that. But I've made a little video that explains it. But anyway, we'll get to that later. So this is very simple stuff, and it feels very straightforward. And I think your learners will hopefully grasp this concept quickly. You've essentially got a problem. There's a visual problem over here. I want to move my Angry Bird from that point, and I want to go and, what should we call it? Eat, attack. I don't know what we do to the pig, but we get to the pig. It's like the dog chasing the postman. What happens when he gets him? No one knows. So there's my problem. And over here, I use block-based coding by dragging these things around and forming little, and trying to figure out the instruction. Now, they made it easy for me by putting these blocks here. I'm just going to move that one over there. So in terms of like reading it as a language, I say when this program is going to run, my little Angry Bird is going to move forward and it's going to move forward again. So there he goes.
Got him.
Right. I forgot to share it with the sound because the sound is great. And then I move on to the next one, which becomes a little bit more challenging. Right. So now they want me to basically do the same thing, only I can't move further along because there's like dynamite that'll explode if I do it too many times. But in this way, it kind of gets sequentially more and more challenging as this thing goes along. You can see there's the debugging thing that they've put in. So they'll give you code, it doesn't work, you need to figure out what's wrong with it and fix it. And then there's all sorts of different things that we can do, sequencing now, sprites, etc. And it gets progressively more challenging. And all the concepts of coding are embedded in this. So, yes, you
just
are
wanted
able
to point out as well that
thanks, dude.
Once you've completed that level, that little 2, it turned green.
Yes.
It perfectly tracks the progress of your learner. This is what I'm saying, that you don't need to be the coder, that he can solve these problems himself. Of course, it helps when you work through it too. But you can just have him sit there and work through these problems, and they will turn green and green and green. And every week after week, you can just continue where you left off. And that's how you track their progress through your coding club.
Okay, so let's see quickly. I've jumped now straight to number 13, which is probably not ideal. I should probably kind of consider a little bit more. So Jonathan's got a long message there. We'll read that later. While I'm explaining this, Louis can read that and see if we need to respond. Thanks, Louis. So let's see what I need to do here. Now I need to go and I need to move around this thing, I'm assuming, and get there. And you'll see immediately I've got little loops that have been put in. So I'm going to, when run, I need to move forward. How many times do I need to move forward? 1, 2, 3, 4. So we'll say I'm going to move forward 4 times. Then I need to turn left. I need to go and move forward, I think twice. Right, so move forward twice. Now this is the visualizing the part of the world thing that Louis spoke about. because I now need to imagine what's going to happen when all of this has happened. Where is my little bird going to be? So at this point in time, I'm going to move 1, 2, 3, 4. Then I'm going to turn. So now I'm facing the next direction. I'm going to move 1, 2. So now am I going to turn left? I'm going to turn right. I'm going to say we'll turn right. And then I'm going to say move forward. Let's see what happens to my little bird. Right, there he goes. He's hopping, he's hopping, he's hopping, he's hopping. And now he's turning, and now he's hopping, and he's hopping. And oh, wait, oh, wait, oh, wait. Wrong direction. Right, so.
Should have turned left.
I should have turned left. Right. I did that intentionally, though, I promise you, to show you the debugging thing. Right, so now I can debug this. And okay, wait. It shouldn't be left. It should be left. Immediately, instantly, I know I got the problem wrong. And instantly, I know that I can actually change it. And what can I do to fix this problem? So now I see, okay, I need to turn left. And I actually now want to move forward. How many times? Would be 4 times again. And let's see if I can get this thing reset and run. And now he's going and he's going and he's going to go down there and he's going to turn left and he's going to go and he'll hop along and get the pig.
Got him.
Right. I see Tanya's got a hand raised there. Tanya, I'll just quickly allow your microphone. Yes, Tanya, what did you want to? Tanya, you can. There we go.
I just had a question. So I tried code.org, right? The problem is that we only have a certain amount of devices to use for the learners. So when the learners log in the second time, then the progress is gone because there was no way for them to save. They don't have assigned usernames, etc. So I just wanted to know, within the code.org, are you able to create like a classroom, for example, like you do with CS First, etc.?
Okay.
Not only does Jaco got you, he already showed me the little video that explains exactly how to create a classroom, how to enroll your learners, even if they don't have email addresses, using little cute picture system of clicking on the right picture. It works perfectly. It's very simple.
I'll go through the recording when it's sent. I probably missed that piece.
No, I haven't shown that yet. I haven't shown that yet. So I realized that we were probably going to run out of time, because I honestly think it is one of the coolest things. And I only discovered it recently about code.org, I'll be honest. So it might be something that they actually added recently. But I thought we were going to run out of time. I still think we're going to run out of time. So we're not going to show that now. But just to give you kind of a quick overview of what makes it or what I think is very cool, is code.org has a system where no one needs an email address, which is really good, especially for our younger learners. You create a class, you load all your learners onto the class, and for your younger learners, they use a picture as a password. So you generate a different link for them that actually, I'm going to try something very quickly. Maybe I should, yes. I'm going to try this very quickly. Oh, wait, I think it should work. I just need to see if I still have that link saved somewhere very far back. Oh, that's the Code Combat one. I think I might have. I think this is the very last. Yes. Right. So over there, you'll see, very cool. I made a classroom. So I literally share this link with my learners. And this now says, welcome to Amazing New Coding Club. This is my Amazing New Coding Club. And I'll choose, I'm Jaco. And now I need to log in. And my login is literally one of these pictures. Now I'm trying to remember which picture it was.
The dog. You were the dog.
Yes, I was the dog. Thank you, Louis. Right, so now I click on the dog and I sign in. And what's cool about it is once I do that, it takes me straight to this point.
And you can track your progress.
And
you create your learners beforehand. You show them which is their picture. You can even print it out if you want to. And then when they log in again, it's just they have your class code and they click on their little picture. That's it.
And you can see their progress and they can see their progress, and then they just continue going just like that. Right. So I think what I love about it is, again, there's no emails, there's no passwords involved. for younger learners, this is very, very useful. It does allow you, if you've got a Google Classroom, you can link it to your Google Classroom, you can link it to those email addresses. So it does all that standard kind of classroom thing that these tools have. Create my classroom, load my roster from some kind of place, or give my kids a join code that they can log in with. And, you know, it does those basic features as well. But I love the fact that it has that picture login. And then it has another one that I haven't really played around with, where it says secret word login. So you can use a combination of 2 or 3 words. That's like their secret phrase, that something like that. But it's basically like password light.
For the older learners, of course, you can use your email addresses. That's easy for them. Can I share my screen quickly, Jaco?
Yes,
20
you're
seconds.
welcome to. Welcome to.
Just wanted to show you, as the teacher view. Jaco, can you see my screen?
Yep, I can see it.
Good. This is my teacher view, and I can see the lessons and stuff. Now, if you wanted to, you could go, because I registered as a teacher with my Google address, and click on the lesson explanation. And they tell you, okay, this might take 35 minutes, skill building standards that you're going to hit. The teacher tips like sanitize your hands, sit with your partner, stuff you can discuss with the learners, and beautifully written out everything you need to know before you try to present this lesson for your coding club. The beauty of this being, you can completely ignore it, just have them sign up to your classroom and start with number 1. Or if you want to be more prepared, you could go and click on the view the lesson plan and see that they're already provided for that week's lesson. Okay, that's all I wanted to show them.
Right, thanks, Louis. I'll take over the presentation again. So the other one we want to show you that I think is a very fun alternative to code.org. And when I say a fun alternative, I don't mean it is like less. I don't mean that it is less, any less than code.org. In fact, I've played around in Code Combat a lot more. I really, really enjoyed it. But we're going to look at Code Combat, because Code Combat, there are 2 critical things about it. It's a way more gamified experience. So it really brings a lot of gamification elements into it. And then there's one other critical thing. As I'm logging in, Louis, what is the one thing about Code Combat that when I showed you this, you thought this is great stuff?
It just completely blew my mind that you can have this thing which is perfectly gamified. As a gamer myself, I thought, holy crap, I would have played this so much as a learner. And then I looked at it. You have a choice between what coding language you should learn. I suggest everyone just stick to Python. It's the best first language, or none. And then it teaches you real coding. Like, this is very gamified. Look at his little avatar over there. He's equipping things now.
At this point, you're not thinking like anyone's going to learn anything from this, because I'm just going to be playing a game. How am I going to be learning anything?
And it gives you little skills granted, makes you stronger, more healthier, whatever it is. But then when you load the game, you'll see on the right-hand side, you can only make your little avatar do stuff and play the game by actually typing out the code. That example over there is euro.move right. They explain there just below that, the options there being euro.move down, euro.move right, euro.move up. I mean, it's very simple. But this is perfect Python syntax. I've looked at the more advanced levels, and it's unbelievable how beautiful the code becomes. And it's all these levels of fighting, of monsters, of solving problems, of leveling up your character, getting experience points, equipping better equipment, that I just know that my learners would have really gone crazy over the opportunity to play this game, never knowing that they're actually learning Python coding solidly. It's a wonderful introduction to Python coding, and I wish I knew about it earlier. And, Jaco, there's nothing that stops you from having a code.org club and a club like this, or even saying, listen, today we're doing code.org, and then we're doing this. Or what if your one kid is like way advanced? He's quickly gone through 13 levels. Like, cool, now you get to play Code Combat. There's so many ways to bring this into your club as well, that I think it's a very valuable thing to have. And
I what I can say from experience is I've also played around quite a bit in different programming, etc., having coded things, and also used to do programming a little bit on the side for fun. I promise you, when you skip to the later parts of this thing, you just don't even know where to begin. It is, you will not be able to move a class through this entire, this is only the first dungeon. There's like more complicated things after this. You will not be able to move through this thing quickly with a group of learners. This can become a big part of what we do. Let's see if we can move through this. And if you can get to the very last level of this thing and finish that very last level, I promise you, you will be a highly competent, functional programmer who can go out into the real world and do very well for themselves.
This is, of course, a free one with a subscription offer from $10 a month to get more levels and more coding and more whatever available. But the free offer itself, the core offering, is completely free, works really well, and it's quite amazing. And you can't skip through the lessons. Your learners, and of course you can register in your classroom as well. Again, they have to go through these lessons one by one. There's no skipping ahead because it wouldn't have helped them. So that's really cool too.
And this one, exactly like the previous one, they've also incorporated a way for you to create a classroom, create passwords, that there is actually no requirement for emails, but at the same time they've got both sides. They've got the classroom creation thing where you register your email accounts, etc., etc. Or you can just add the learners and generate passwords for them and have them join via class code. So
you see there top right, don't enter your class code to join.
Yeah,
you can see it
if
there.
you have a class, then enter your class code and then you can get going. Or you can create your free teacher account. You can go explore. But basically, we've shown you two very cool places where you can start exploring. We're not saying that you need to choose necessarily one of these, but we can recommend them as very cool places to start.
Now, the reason I want you to actually look at this as well is I've had learners in grade 10 that when we go from block-based coding to typing coding, they completely fall out of the bus. They just can't grasp how to go from block-based to typing. But if you just sidestep that by showing them text-based coding from the beginning, then there's no learning curve. You don't need the scaffolding because there will just be a natural extension of their abilities already and a very smooth transition into just being a professional programmer or a competent programmer. It's very nice.
Right. Louis was very excited when I showed him CodeCom at the first time.
I've been playing it today, yeah.
So these are two great places to explore. But now we need to talk about this. We cannot just ignore this concept. My director always talks about the whole idea of the lights and the brights. The car idea is the lights. That's what's in front of, that's what's here right now. The brights, if we put them on, then we can see what is happening in the future. Where are we going with this? So the critical thing for me is, and this is a view that I've had now for a while. I think when we talk about coding and robotics, it sometimes becomes a little bit intimidating because yes, coding, we've just pointed out, is something that requires enthusiasm and requires curiosity. Adding robotics becomes a bit more complicated when we want to add robotics. But before we do that, I'm going to ask, I didn't tell Louis I'm going to ask him this question, but let's see how he answers this. Louis, what is the value of adding robotics to the coding part, do you think, in your mind?
Trying to put me on the spot here, right?
Yes.
My opinion, I am pro coding and the robotics adds very little to it because I'm just so much towards, coding. But I was shown that there is a learner out there that learns better by being hands-on, by touching things, by seeing it move in the physical work. And then I've demonstrated this, and I've been part of courses from the B-bots, the Reach robots, the microbits, the Lego leagues, that I've seen how this can turn into something more than coding, with an understanding of the physical world that is coupled to coding that brings about a really beautiful change in the learners as well. So there is worth in it, Jaco.
Thank you. Louis has been converted from a pure hard coder to the robotics can add value. But I think I like the critical thing that we do need to consider here is, again, Daniela is making a very good point. You can't have robotics without coding. So coding is the starting point. And that's why we're saying that if coding is the starting point, then why do we need to wait for robotics before we can start? Makes no sense. We can start without the robotics part. And then that is the brights. That's the part where once we get going with our coding and we get curious about the robotics, then we can start adding it in. Then we can start phasing it in. There are lots of things in the happening in the background, which I'm not going to expand on. And you're not going to, if you could welcome to ask me the question, but I will just tell you, I don't have a response right now. But there are lots of things happening in the background regarding the robotics and the rollout of robotics kits and things like that, that is in the process of happening. But it's been in the process of happening for a while now. And waiting for a while, or just waiting for these things to happen, doesn't really get us there. But we don't want to leave you with nothing, leave you empty-handed. So what are some of the brights? I asked Louis if he could make recommendations, if he could consider. We don't, very importantly, we're not telling you to go out and get these things, but we want to just talk about some of the options that are available. Right, so Yasmina just mentioned this in the chat. Microbits. Louis, what are microbits and what do they do for you?
Okay. That little microbit board you're seeing there, that's almost a physical representation of the size, maybe 4 by 6 centimeters. It's a really small PC board that's got buttons and sensors like rotation, light sensors. It's got these little LEDs. I think they've made a little smiley face on that one. You can rotate it. You can speak to its microphone speaker. All of these sensors and things built into this one very small little PC board, which is very versatile. You can see at the top there is a little USB port. You plug it into your computer, you code it online in the browser, and then you just download that to your device, and suddenly you can do things with it. From the most simple things like making a little smiley face or a heart that flashes or something, to what I've seen at Darstop High School. They built a system where a microbit's attached to a wristwatch that if an old-aged person would fall, it detects the fall and then sends a message to another device that alerts the nurse to come. And it's all these cool things that they've thought of that they can do with these little small boards.
Yeah, I've seen some people do unbelievable things with the microbits. It's an incredibly powerful tool.
Yep, it plays music.
And it can just be expanded to do quite crazy things. And it's not unaffordable. That's the other part about it that is useful. So how much are they roughly, Louis?
They're about 500 Rand for a starting kit. Of course, a kid doesn't need to work alone on a kit, so one kit between 2 children. I mean, I say 500 Rand, but some of the other things are ridiculously overpriced. So that's for me. If your school is looking at spending money, that's something that can work very well in subject integration as well as a coding club. Yeah.
Right. So I'm glad Danielle's mentioned the Lego Spike, because Lego robotics.
Now, I just want to say the Lego robotics thing is the coolest robotics set or kit that I've seen so far, in my opinion. Not only because the robots are cool, because of the league, the fact that it turns into a sports club where you compete against other schools, gives your coding club, your robotics club, such a nice purpose. And yes, I know that kit is 10,000 Rand for one. I know that the challenge set for the year is 3,000 Rand every year for the new challenge, all the problems for that year. So now it's saying 10,000 Rand for a team of 4 players, 3,000 Rand once a year. That's the cost. But as I've told all my other schools as well, there is a first SA grant where they will literally send you these kits for free if you're willing to run a club at your school. And if you were to close the club, you send the kit back. Now, I've spoken to one of the directors on the board of these first SA NGO people giving them money, and they still have space for 12 primary schools just filling in the Google form and saying, we'll do first SA Lego League at my school, and they'll just mail you the kit. And I don't understand why these primary schools don't just fill in the Google form and start the first SA Lego robotics club that takes part in a league at your school. In my document that we're going to share with you, I link you to all the grants that you can apply for. So it's there. That please, if you think the Lego League is something you want to do, that's great. If you think the microbits is something a school might want to invest in, that's also great. These are, in my opinion, one of the easiest integration into robotics for a school.
And I think one of the things that excited me as well about the Lego robotics when I've seen it is, as Louis pointed out, it gives a purpose to the coding club. It gives a direction to what we're doing. It's the same as if you equate it to a sports club. I mean, if you're going to continually practice rugby without ever playing a match, kids are going to get disinterested. People are going to fall away. They're not going to continue with this thing necessarily. If you kind of give it a purpose, then it becomes great. Same with a microbit, and I've seen people do wonderful things with that, having these competitions with microbits, having a goal that you need to reach. We need to do X, Y, and Z by the end of then with a microbit. But again, I want to emphasize when I say this is all part of Bright's thinking. Because if you are going to get focused on that whole concept, you will get bogged down and you'll get stuck with a, oh wait, I don't know, I don't want to, let's get a little bit worried and scared about this whole thing. I think if you just again put the first foot forward, start exploring and start with your club. I love the question that where was it? John posed this question about the coding club. Does it have to be a school-based thing? Look, the advantage of making it a school-based thing is if you spoke to the management and you managed to have some sort of arrangement with them, then you've got access to internet connectivity and you've got access to devices. If you're going to go it alone, that becomes a bit of a logistical stumbling block. But I mean, that doesn't stop you necessarily. If it's something that you can overcome and you've got a way to get around it, then there's nothing wrong with not being able to do that. You won't be able to go and get the Lego robotics grant if you're not doing it from a school, obviously. So your club, independent club, will not get that grant. But I mean, that's 13,000 Rand. There are a couple of kits out there. Why aren't we applying for it?
Yep.
We can get them. Lots of them.
If I can just quickly show something. Now, in case you were like me,
while he's kind of sharing his screen,
afraid
this is not to discount the other alternatives out there, because a lot of people have mentioned other alternatives. This is just purely from Louis' experience, the ones that he's found he liked the best, that worked well for him.
Oh, this is the document that we're going to share with you guys later on. Now, for the microbit ones, there is the make code editor. It's got an emulator built into it. So if you want to actually start coding, then you don't need the actual microbit physical device already. Yes, got it. And there you run the emulator. See, press the buttons, do all the things. You've got lesson plans that also classroom, register kids. You can decide which lesson plan, how many lessons they have at age appropriate as well. Or if you think that you need to upskill yourself before doing a microbit club, then they've got these handy little micro lessons that you do. And I've had a school that sat 3 teachers and over a couple of afternoons that did all of these together in Computerland, told no one about it. And after they went through these small little micro lessons, then they started buying, of course, 5 or 10 kits for the school and started their microbit club using these lesson plans. So that's a very easy way to do a microbit club. You can use the emulator or the actual kit. And in comparison, also the First SA Lego League, they have the same type of thing where they send you the books for the teachers, the learners, and you work from there. So you've got all of these available resources for both microbit and for Lego, and they are both really good options. It's just about what fits your school better.
Right. But again, we have to point this out that when you're going to add robotics to your club, you are likely to have to incur some kind of costs. Except if you get the Lego League grant, which is crazy to me still.
I would have started with Go.org and Code Combat. That's why these recommendations are there. That's what I would have started with.
Wonderful. That's as I said, that's kind of the thing that we wanted to say. We are over our time already, which is why I knew that we won't have time to show you how to create the classes, etc. So we are going to add that. The John's asking about high school. These same things apply to high school. I think the Lego First League is high school as well. It's not just primary school.
Ages 9 to 16.
Yes, ages 9 to 16. So I know one of the high schools in the Worcester area in Zwelathemba, they started with their Lego First League, I think a year or 2 years ago. They actually won the competition, and these kids from a less fortunate background were able to go to America to compete there in a robotics competition. That's unbelievably amazing things that actually started happening. So the last thing that we want to say is thank you and good luck.
Well,
we'll
John,
send you these resources. We'll send you Louis' email address, not mine.
Jaco's.
And we'll also make sure that we'll share the contact details for the coding and robotics SCPs in the province as well, Ashrik, Don, and Matilda Botha, that you can contact them as well. And incredibly valuable resources as well to be able to tap into their vast knowledge on this topic. But I think the one thing that we really just wanted to get across, if there's one last thing, let me first give Louis the opportunity. Louis, if there's one last thing that you can say to the group that we've still got here, what would that be?
Just do it. It's very simple. Don't be afraid to make mistakes. It'll be messy. It'll be wonderful, and you'll grow with these learners. And you will see after many years, they'll come back to you and tell you, my coding journey started with you. I cannot thank you enough. It's changed my life, my family's life. It's changed so many people's lives, just having the ability to do this properly. Thank you very much. That's been my experience.
Yeah, Louis took the words out of my mouth. I was going to say the same thing. Put the first foot forward and get going with your coding club. I think it's going to be amazing. Thank you very much for attending. Thank you a lot for Louis sharing his own expertise and his enthusiasm, because I think his enthusiasm for the topic is pretty clear for anyone to see. So thanks for sharing that enthusiasm and your curiosity with us and your own findings. And I really hope that this is going to be the start of your journey to our participants. And we are very excited to see coding clubs popping up all over the province. The register, I'm going to post it again in the chat. Please make sure that you register. I'll share what I think I'm going to do is I'm going to share that opening screen for us. So you can click on that if it doesn't work, and you can click and go and code some more if you really feel like doing that.
Thank you, everyone. Have a lovely day.